Hello, listener, and welcome to Book 5, Chapter 13 of Bite-Sized Tales, the audio flash fiction podcast. Today, we continue with the serial story, The Burden of Protection. The Burden of Protection, Part 5, Camp Trollblood, written and read by Chris Hussey. In Part 4, Phrixus journeyed through a vision of temptation provided to him by the spirit of the dead and disgraced paladin, Lenore Drache. The alchemist struggled to return to reality as he considered reuniting with a former lover. It wasn't until cries from the outside world and a series of mixed thoughts gave Phrixus the strength to break from his dreams, returning to reality. There he was able to collect blood from the weeping spirit, while Garret struggled to overcome undead captors, under the holy paladin's control. In the battle's confusion, Phrixus lost sight of Garret, only to turn and find the remaining undead closing in on him. Out of reflex, Phrixus brought his hands up to shield and protect his neck from the fatal grasp of the undead. His eyes focused on the open mouth of the creature. Broken teeth snarled behind peeled, split, and dried lips. Black gums dripped gray-tinted blood and yellowed saliva as the beast sought the fresh flesh of the alchemist. Phrixus screamed as he felt himself losing the struggle. His scream was answered by a howl of agony from the undead as its chest split open, the blade of a sword bursting through, stopping only inches from Phrixus's stomach. With a spray and showering of the same noxious fluids, the sword ripped upward, tearing the undead into unequal split halves, which quickly fell lifeless to either side. Garret stood behind the now fallen creature, similarly drenched from the same juices, a stream of crimson running from his nose. Garret gestured toward the floating spirit behind Phrixus, which glowed and let forth a low moan of dissatisfaction, but remained disturbingly still. "Do you have her blood?" he asked through exasperated breaths. Phrixus nodded quickly. "Good. Do you need mine right in this moment?" An equally rapid shake. "Excellent. Let us leave her and this place with utmost haste." He extended a hand to help the alchemist to his feet. The moaning of Lenore Drache rose in intensity. "Do not look back. Remember, she cannot touch you, and her words are poison." The pair made for the hole in the floor, which served as the entrance and exit to this level. As Phrixus set to grab the rungs spiked into the wall, he looked to the floor above. A warm glow emanated from the staircase leading up to the unexplored level, the same light the pair saw upon approach to the tower. They never made it there, with Lenore meeting them on the penultimate level of her home, both in her former physical life as well as her current spiritual one. As he gazed in curiosity, he heard the familiar voice of his former lover, Isabella. She was calling from above. "Phrixus, come to me. I am sorry. Allow me this chance to show my regret." The alchemist stopped as the world seemed to fade away. The walls of the tower began to morph, brighten, and transform, but in an instant snapped back to their moss and mold-covered dark stone as a sharp sensation rattled Phrixus's cheek. "Return to me, alchemist!" Garret screamed, his face nearly touching Phrixus's. Wordlessly, and with growing shame, Phrixus descended the ladder, out of sight of the haunting form of the fallen paladin. As Garret moved to take his turn down the ladder, he spared one last look toward the spirit. Her face formed into something very familiar to the man, and words from a voice in his past crossed the distance between ghost and man. "You will return, and then you will stay." Garret pursed his lips, looked to Lenore, and began his climb. "Perhaps," was all he said. "It's still raining outside," Phrixus spoke, worry lining his voice. Garret nodded. "We will be safe here for the moment. Do what must be done, alchemist." Garret extended his head out, swinging the lantern at an angle that illuminated his face and the steady dripping of his bloody nose. Somewhere in the rafters of the lowest level of the tower, Ronan chirped in happiness at the return of the pair. "Oh, yes." Phrixus moved from his position near the hole in the wall towards Garret. As he crossed the space, he readied the container with the spirit's blood and the varied agents. With shaky hands, he positioned the bottle near Garret's face, collecting drop after drop. Garret watched the alchemist's face closely. He could see Phrixus's lips silently moving, appearing to both count and work some sort of mathematical equation, likely calculating the amount of blood on the fly. Another dozen drops, and Phrixus pursed his lips in satisfaction, pulling the bottle clear. Quickly, he reached into the pouch at his waist and sprinkled the remaining ingredients into the mixture. Capping the bottle, he shook it vigorously, sparing a moment to smile at the Westdown man. "Are we complete?" Garret asked, growing urgency in his voice. Phrixus gave a nervous sigh. "We are, yes. We did it." "That we did. Let us celebrate later, but for now, we should leave. I do not want to tarry here any longer than we need be." "It still rains," said Phrixus. "That it does, but judging by what we just faced and what covers our clothing and faces, a good cleansing from that rain, even in the cold of night, will be preferable." Phrixus looked his clothing over. The stains from the fluids of the creature covered him. He began to feel a tingling sensation across his face where he'd been sprayed when the creature was slain. His only response was an enthusiastic nod. The last 3 days of travel were boring, and Phrixus found himself happy for it. After leaving the tower, the pair became soaked to the bone before making camp. It took some of Phrixus's hell powder to overcome the wetness of the deadfall they found to get a fire started. Even with the warmth, it took a full day for everything to dry out, but they were clean and clear of the horrors from the visions of Lenore Drache. Now, 2 days hence, they moved with ease along the trail to the settlement known as Camp Trollblood. Garret insisted on the detour. The most direct path through the portal was northwest, through a region known as the Spiked Lands. The journey would have been quicker, at least as the map read, but Garret warned of the hazards that lay within. If the hidden patches of nail sand don't get us, the abashed stones might have us walking in circles for days. And even if we do navigate them with success, the tribes that called the lands their home do not take kindly to visitors. And let us not even begin to discuss the beasts of magic laying within the caves of the bluffs there. Phrixus desired to see the Spiked Lands. The tales and stories of the treasures, ancient ruins, as well as rare plants and compounds hinted to lie within excited him greatly. But he, too, heard of the dangers that lurked among the sharp, cone-shaped stones, and knew this was not the time to question Garret's decision. "Plus, I know someone within the town that can get us to the portal by a safer route, and they owe me a favor." "And you know they will be there?" Garret nodded firmly. "Oh, yes." The pair continued in silence for some time, until fingers of smoke could be seen on the horizon. Fires from the hearths of Camp Trollblood spoke to warmth and hearty food, the twinge of salty air and fish mixed with the fading scent of the thinning woods. Ronan twittered happily as he flitted between the trees, as if announcing their pending arrival. Phrixus decided he'd waited long enough. A question lingered on his mind since entering the tower, but he'd resisted asking it until now. "Why does your nose bleed?" Garret paused for a moment before responding. "Why are your eyes red?" Phrixus suddenly felt embarrassed. He didn't even realize that Garret may have seen while in the tower. He'd made no acknowledgement of it. Garret could sense the alchemist's hesitation. "It's all right, Phrixus. I will tell you. And there's no need to share your secret with me. Truth be told, I do not know why my nose bleeds. It has done so since I started becoming a man. When my voice began to crack and my hair sprouted, the blood would drip from my nose whenever I would find myself in trouble or distress. Combat training, failed lessons from teachers, even courting maidens could cause it to bleed. Sages, wizards, even your brethren offered their answers. All were different, and none were helpful." Phrixus nodded and thought to himself, Perhaps, he began, then he stopped himself. Garret chuckled. Silence. Excellent choice. I'd likely heard whatever you were about to say. Phrixus changed his response. Did it bleed the last time you were at the portal? Garret thought for a moment. I do believe it did not. I never considered that, truth be told. It may be nothing, Phrixus offered, but I do find it curious. I would think the stress of performing your end of the ritual would be considered distress. Garret nodded, most assuredly. The pair resumed their silence as the outer wall of Camp Trollblood began to rise on the horizon. Phrixus was the first to break it once again. It was a childish mistake. My eyes. They glow as red as a demon's. What sort of mistake could you have done to cause this to happen? My heart was broken. I was in love with a woman, Isabella. She was in love with me, or so I thought. She betrayed me, with a fellow I thought was a friend. And your eyes transformed from the pain of love lost? Garret asked, with a tone of mocking in his voice. Phrixus seemed to not notice. The pain and shame in his voice continued. No, this was in my early days as an alchemist student. In a fit of rage and hurt, I pored over tomes looking for a formula to help me forget, to ease my suffering. I found such a recipe, but I mixed it improperly. My tears caused my eyes to misread a catalyst. I drank the mixture and slept. In the morning, the pain was still just as fresh, and my eyes transformed. It serves as a painful reminder of that betrayal, and has also made me a fair target of mockery. Garret thought about Phrixus's words. He watched the alchemist fidget at his jewelry while they rode. I'm sorry, was all he could say to the man. Phrixus nodded in acknowledgement. I've grown accustomed to it. It is not a complete curse. On clear nights under a full moon, I am bestowed special sight. It has been a boon from time to time. Garret pushed his lips out and gave a smile of satisfaction. You are proving to be a most interesting fellow, Phrixus, and a more than fair traveling companion. The open gates of Camp Trollblood loomed. The trees surrounding the trail toward their entrance broke, and the pair trotted toward the open. Ronan arced down, up, then down once again to settle on Phrixus's shoulder. Tents, wagons, and other ramshackle stands and carts lined the sides of the trail. Merchants shouted their wares, and buskers sang their songs or recited their poems. Charlatans begged for attention to ply their false magics in the hopes of tempting the duo to hire them. Camp guards wove in and out amongst the crowd, their distinctive bleeding troll insignia boldly displayed on their shields. The display not only continued, but was magnified upon passing through the gates and the stout birch and fir logs that made up the wall of the town. The streets were muddy and filled with waste, refuse, and the downtrodden begging for pittance and mercy from all passerbys. Phrixus found himself making eye contact with numerous residents. His hood hid the nature of his pupils, but in the gaze of those whose eyes he met, they spoke of silent promises of violence, robbery, or pleasure. He felt himself begin to sweat. Secure your treasures, alchemist, and if I was you, my friend, I would remove your hood. In rough and tumble places such as this, the perception of danger can be just as threatening as a blade. Are you certain? Most assuredly so, Garret spoke once again. And where we are heading, we could use that extra threat. Garret gave a subtle nod toward the docks in the distance. The docks? What awaits us there? Garret smiled. I didn't tell you, Phrixus. Garret patted the pouch at his hip. I am the proud owner of a ship. A ship? Phrixus could not contain his surprise. Indeed, Garret's voice took on a tone of concern. Now, let us hope that she hasn't gambled it away or has gotten herself cast into the stockade. Author's note. So, in this part of the story, again, we kind of run into a situation where something I had planned to happen in the story is probably not going to appear until the next chapter, but I felt it was worth it because I wanted to be able to develop a little bit more of the relationship between Garret and Phrixus, as well as get into a couple more aspects that the cards generated when I was creating these characters, most notably Phrixus's eyes and the fact that Garret has a deed, which in this case we've decided to be a ship that he owns. And also, of course, dealing with Garret's bloody nose, which has been something that's been going on since the beginning of the story. So, anyway, I hope you're enjoying it. I hope that you have a great Thanksgiving if you're listening to this before then, and also, of course, if you celebrate it. But thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This chapter of Bite-Sized Tales has been brought to you under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Intro and outro music is Fantasy Motion by Alexander Nakarada, provided under a Creative Commons 4.0 license. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we greatly appreciate reviews and recommendations to your friends. For more information about our authors, please visit bitesizedtales.com or follow us on Instagram at bite_size_tales or on Blue Sky at bitesizedtales.bsky.social. We look forward to reading to you next time.